Nero Hawley's Fight for Freedom. Good morning, Wareham. How's it going? Mr. Gately's class. We're just here and we're introducing James Fortin's book. And we're going to do the vocabulary reader first this week because I think it'll help you more with the vocabulary worksheet because it gives you the answers. So I think you're going to be good. All right. And that's good because some of these you might know, some of you might not, and this will help you finish the paper. Okay, so let's read Nero Hawley's Fight for Freedom, shall we? By Susan M. Bauer, illustrated by John Edens, or Edens. Probably Edens. Key vocabulary. Here are the answers. Abolitionists. People who believe that slavery should be against the law. Apprentice. Someone who learns a job by working for another person. Assisted. Helped. Captives. Prisoners. Conflict. Struggle or war. Dread. Fear or horror. Encouraged. Supported or urged. Enslavement. Being held as a slave. Influential. Having the power to change events or opinions. Privateers. Non-Navy ships that are allowed to attack enemy ships. Tacking. Changing direction while sailing. Okay, so there you go. And now let's hear the story of Nero Hawley's fight for freedom. The American Revolution had started. All over the country, patriots were fighting for freedom. They did not want to be ruled by the British anymore. But not everyone could fight. Many patriot leaders did not want to allow African Americans and slaves to take part in the war. Soon, however, the army needed more men. The patriot leaders decided to allow African Americans to become soldiers. Many free African Americans joined the army. The Navy also needed more help. It encouraged or urged people to use their own ships to help attack the British. Many African Americans became sailors on these ships called privateers. They spent long days tacking back and forth on the ocean, watching for enemy ships. Not all African American soldiers were free men. White men who didn't want to go to war often had slaves go in their place. Nero Hawley was one of these slaves. For years, Hawley had worked in a sawmill in Connecticut. But in the fall of 1777, he joined the army. He waved goodbye to his wife and child as he set off. He did not know if he would see them again. The Patriot leaders promised to free slaves who fought on their side. Throughout the war, Hawley held on to this promise of freedom. He looked forward to the day he would be released from enslavement. Life in the army was very different from life as a slave. As a soldier, Hawley was paid a small sum each month. As a slave, he was never paid at all. As a soldier, Hawley also got plenty to eat and drink, more than he had received as a slave. Let's see the good picture. Then Hawley was sent to Pennsylvania to join General George Washington's troops. General Washington was one of the most powerful and influential leaders in the war. He commanded a huge army of soldiers in the conflict with Great Britain. Washington ordered his troops to set up camp at Valley Forge. As the army made camp, snow fell like a cold, wet blanket. It kept falling. The soldiers were filled with dread when they thought about the long, hard winter ahead. Hawley shared a hut with 12 other soldiers. The hut was freezing. Even worse, the army began to run out of food, clothing, and other supplies. That winter, nearly 3,000 soldiers got sick and died. Now Hawley was one of the lucky survivors. Oh, Nero Hawley was one of the lucky survivors. Hawley survived many dangerous battles in the war. Other soldiers were far less fortunate. Many were killed or badly wounded. Others became captives of the British and were held as prisoners of war. In October 1881. I think that's supposed to say 1781. That is a misprint. In October 1781, the long, terrible war finally ended. The British surrendered at Yorktown, Virginia. The colonies were free to rule themselves. Despite the Army's promise, some slaves who fought in the war did not win their freedom. Many abolitionists were angry that the Army had not kept all of its promises. They wanted to end slavery, so they assisted or helped slaves who wanted to escape. Nero Hawley's dream of freedom did come true. After the war, the Army released him. He became a free man. He returned to his home in Connecticut. After training as an apprentice, he became a skilled brickmaker. He lived to be 75 years old. Okay, here's those key vocabulary words we'll be working with. Isn't that great? He got to be free. It's amazing that some of them didn't. It's sad when you don't keep your promises like that to people. Well, I'm glad that Nero Hawley became free, and he fought for America and for everyone's freedom. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.